I'd like to open the Planning Commission meeting of the North Rock Planning Commission. Welcome everyone here today. Ms. Keisha, would you please call the roll?
Alexander.
Here.
Blaska.
Here.
Chambers.
Present.
Dietz. Foster.
Here.
Harris. Phillip.
Here.
White. Chairman Clifton.
Here. Do I hear a motion?
Excuse the members not present.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We excuse those members not present. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Also, we're glad to have Ward 3 Alderman Steve Baxter here with us tonight. Let me remind you to please turn off your cell phones now. And if you have a copy of the agenda, our Planning Commission procedures are on the back of that. And please, if you come to speak into the microphone and give us your name, please. And with that, Mr. Spencer.
Just want to give you a quick update. In your package, there is a little memo about what happened last month at City Council with the Planning Commission items. So I'll give you a little update on that. And item 4 on our agenda today is postponed. So the six-room bed and breakfast at 109 West 5th has been postponed to next month.
So if you are here for that hearing, it will not be heard today. Be glad for you to stay with us, or you may be excused. Mr. Chambers?
Yes, Mr. Spencer, regarding the memo about city council action, just to clarify, when we place conditions on an item, are those conditions attached to the item, and when they approve it with those conditions, and or do they have to re-nominate or propose those conditions, or how's that handled?
They're sent with the conditions that you vote on, and they're welcome to add more conditions to it.
Or subtract?
Or subtract, yes.
Okay.
But when it gets sent, this is what the Planning Commission voted on with this vote on this date.
With these conditions?
Yes.
Okay, because many times those conditions are hard fought in terms of their wording and how they, just to help the persons that are neighbors and such and try and find a happiness point, with
Correct,
everybody.
yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You have been submitted a copy of the minutes of our previous meetings. Are there any additions or corrections?
Move for approval. Second.
Motion made and seconded to be approved as submitted. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Under our development review, Mr. Chambers is chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Development Review Committee met and considered item SD 2016-46, Spring Hill Development, Lot 9, Block 4, to vacate a plat located at the northeast corner of Spring Hill and Stockton. The applicant made his presentation and agreed to all the requirements for vacation, and with that, the Development Review Committee recommended approval.
Second.
Moden, okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this application? Any comments from any of the commissioners on the application? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item B is 2016-48, Interplan Office Park, lots 2A, B, and C, a replat of one lot into 3 lots, and site plan review of lot 2A for ProSource located at 7201 Interplan Drive. The applicant was present and agreed to items 1 through 11 and subsections, and with that, the Development Review Committee recommends approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that be approved as submitted. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this application? Any comments from any of the commissioners on the application? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Item C is SD 2016-49, Coppers Addition, Lot 1, preliminary plat and site plan review of an industrial office located at 1651 Van Street. The applicant was present, and he agreed to items 1 through 12 and subsections, and with that, the Development Review Committee recommends approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This application be approved as submitted. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this application? Any comments from any of the commissioners on the application? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item D is SD 2016-50 Keaton Addition, Lot 1, preliminary plat of a lot located near the southeast corner of Cary and Remount. The applicant was present and agreed to items 1 through 11, and with that, the Development Review Committee recommends approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that it be approved as submitted. Anyone like to speak on this application? Any comments from any of the commissioners? Mr. Foster?
Yes, I know our Development Committee approved this with these conditions, but one of the conditions on here is not real clear, and I want to make sure that's clear. I noticed one of our aldermen is here and want to make sure that he understands and they understand that our committee did recommend waivering the half-street, and it doesn't really read that clear on here on item number 5B. I know we have to, whether we approve it or not, has to get a waiver through city council, but our committee did vote to waive half the street improvements for this project.
Right, it's, Mr. Foster, we normally write it, unless, if they don't get the waiver from city council, they have to build them.
That's
So-
correct.
So what this states is, you have to build them or you have to get a waiver, and that's where it was left.
Well, I just want to make sure that city council knows that the intent of our recommendation, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And Sean and I have visited about that, and I think we can clear that up with a little bit different language in that description.
Okay, yeah.
That kind of goes back with what Mr. Chambers was talking about earlier. If this were sent to the council with these provisions, they would not know that the commission recommended waiver of those unless it was pointed out to them.
That's my point.
The subdivision items or design review committee are a little different. So this list, it will not be sent to them. It would literally, there'll be a statement from staff that says design review committee recommends waiver of this requirement.
Okay.
Okay.
good.
No.
So it's a little different than what, this does not get sent. Conditional uses and rezoning and special uses gets exactly what you guys vote on. This will be a recommendation from, it will state that.
Okay.
For that line item at city council when they consider that issue, right? Okay, got it.
All right, good.
Well, that helps a lot. I
So
appreciate that.
next time around, next time we do something, it could say, design review committee recommends waiver of this. So we can add that sentence onto it next time,
Okay.
so.
Be less confusing, maybe.
Well, I also want developers to know that when they do business in the city of North Little Rock, we're open to that, I've changed my position on this from, I guess, a couple of years ago, but, I see these improvements that are made for half the street in front of a piece of property, whether it's 100 feet long or 200 feet long, and then 20 years later, it's the only street improvement for, the whole street. And then when the city does come around to making street improvements for the rest of the block or the rest of the street, those are in such deplorable conditions, they have to spend extra money to tear them up and rebuild them. So I just don't think that's advantageous to put that burden on a developer. And also, I think it's a burden, a future burden on the taxpayer. So I've kind of want everybody to know, I've kind of changed my position on that, and that's one of the arguments we made during our subdivision committee to go in this direction, so other members of this commission know that. That's one of the discussions we had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster.
And Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Mr.
Chambers?
Foster's changed his mind, but I haven't changed mine.
Okay, duly noted. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this application? Any other comments from the commissioners on the application? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item E is SD 2016-51 Harper subdivision, Lot 1 and 2, replat of one lot into two lots located at the southeast corner of Remount and Spriggs. The Development Review Committee met with the applicant, and he agreed to items 1 through 9 in subsections, and the Development Review Committee recommends approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that this be approved as submitted. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this application? Any other comments from the commissioners on the application? Please call, or all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
That concludes the Development Review Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. We'll move into our public hearing. Our first case is rezone case number 2016-11 to rezone property located at 14 Remount Road from R1 to C3 and to amend the land use plan from single family to community shopping to allow for a commercial development. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Please come up and give us your name for the record.
Mike Marlar with Marlar Engineering Company.
Have we had any comments on this?
Receive no comments either way.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this? Any comments from the commissioners on this application? Please call the roll.
Alexander,
Yes.
Blasco,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Beats, Foster,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Chairman Clifton.
Yes. Your application did pass. Get with Mr. Spencer and he can tell you where to go next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is rezone case 2016-12 and conditional use numbers 2016-15 to rezone property located at 2800 West 58th Street from O1 to C3 and to amend the land use plan from single family to community shopping to allow for a commercial conditional use for offices with warehouse space. Is the applicant here? Please come up and give us your name, please.
Ryan Meyer.
What is your intention to do here with this property?
We want to move our existing business from a couple blocks down the road to this location.
Okay. Any comments from anyone, Mr. Spencer?
Receive no comments either way.
Ms. Belasco?
I just want to clarify, moving this into a C3 with the special use, they would have to come back for it to ever be zoned multifamily, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this application? Any comments made to the commissioners? On the application, please call the roll.
Alexander,
Yes.
Blasco,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Deets, Foster,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Chairman Clifton.
Yes. Your application did pass. See Mr. Spencer, and he can tell you what your next step would be.
Good luck.
Thank you. Next item is item number 3, special use case number 2016-16 to allow indoor retail in an I-2 zone located at 10503 Maumelle Boulevard. Is the applicant here?
My name is Amos Enderlin.
Okay. What is it you're wanting to,
Want to put a vintage market inside this building.
okay. Okay. Has there been any comments, Mr. Spencer?
Receive no phone calls for or against it.
Okay. Any comments from anyone in the audience? Any comments made to the commissioners?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Foster?
Is this a new building you're building there, or is it a existing building?
It's an existing building.
Okay, it's a little bit, okay. The configuration on the aerial photographs was a little bit different than this, and when I went by there, it looks like the aerial photographs. That's what kind of confused me. Thank you.
Oh,
We have I'm sorry, Mr. Chambers?
yes, you're looking to use there's two buildings on here noted as 10503. Is that, Sean, the two buildings have the identical addresses?
Yeah, he's asking for Building B, aren't you?
Yes, Building B, correct.
So it'd be the second building back from Maumelle Boulevard.
Okay. And you're just, so the request is for the entire property, but he's only interested in?
Building B.
Building B.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So this would be reclassifying the whole property?
The legal description for the property is one large property, but the way it will be written up is to allow indoor retail on Building B.
Okay, what about the other buildings then? Will that change anything for them?
Not at all.
So the proper address is 10503B?
Yep.
Got it, okay.
But again, if you want to approve it for the whole property, you could do that, because it was legal added that way. So that's something you could discuss with him if that's where you were heading with that question.
Well, if we did that, then would that not preclude him from using the other buildings as the I-2 use?
This adds an additional,
It's
so
adding-
it's a special use. So everything in I-2 is allowed plus indoor retail.
Okay. So all you're wanting to do then is just for the one building?
Yes, that's correct.
Anyone in the audience like to speak on this application? Any comments from any of the commissioners? On the application, please call the roll.
Alexander,
Yes.
Glasgow,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Deets, Foster,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Chairman Clifton.
Yes, your application did pass. See Mr. Spencer, and he can tell you what your next step might be.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Item number 4, special use case 2016-17 has been postponed, and that concludes our regular agenda. We are now open for any public comment. Mr. Chambers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to elaborate briefly on the Half Street improvements issue. Basically, we allow the zoning ordinance and land development ordinance allows waiver of Half Street improvements if you have a hardship. So when I say that my position hasn't changed, it's that our laws say you shall have a hardship, not I don't wanna, or the planning commission doesn't think that that's a prudent use of money. That's not a hardship. So I guess what I'm saying is we need to change the criteria for granting the waiver, because right now it's a hardship. It's either grading or drainage, or you can't build that half of the bridge or whatever it is. There's a physical hardship that keeps you from doing that Half Street improvement. And I agree with Commissioner Foster in principle. I really do. That yeah, I've seen some pretty stupid 100-foot long Half Street improvements built. It's kind of silly. But at the same time, we can't just unilaterally change the rules. If the city council wants to say, well, you can now, if it doesn't appear to be a logical form of development, or it doesn't appear to make logical sense, well, we need to have a framework for saying it doesn't make logical sense. Or we need to have something in our master street plan that says if a Half Street improvement is shorter than 100 feet, then you don't have to do it. But there needs to be something to hang your hat on, because right now we're unilaterally saying, I don't support it. And that's not what when you took the oath, you said you'd uphold the rules. Well, the rules say there's a hardship, okay? So that's my point. I mean, I support, I really do. I understand what you're saying, but the rules don't allow us to do that. We have to require it unless there's a physical hardship.
Mr.
Doug-
Chairman, may I respond? I mean,
Foster,
I'm
go
glad to
ahead.
have this discussion, because I've labored over this issue for over a year, and every time this comes up, I always kind of go along and go along. But then again, if you say drainage is a problem, or you got a steep grade, or, whatever, well, all that boils down to money can fix anything. And so it all boils down to money, and if you say money's not a cost of something or money's not a hardship, then it is. I mean, it is, you know, because it all boils down to, you know, hey, does he, well, require him to put a retaining wall or improve the drainage or fill or whatever? You know, he says, well, that's a hardship on me. Well, yeah, it's a cost, it's an economic hardship on him. So I don't know how you can get around not classifying a hardship as economic. And that's been what I've kind of labored about. And I don't know the answer to it, you know, so if it's, I'm open to still discuss this, you know, but I'm like I said, is I just want to make it advantageous for people to come to our city and feel like they're being reasonably treated when they want to develop a piece of property or buy a piece of property or open up a new business here, you know. That's kind of my goal here, and I want to kind of break down some of those barriers that they may see. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, I've talked to a lot of people about this issue, and the consensus is in the developers and landowners and real estate people around, they like doing business in North Rock as opposed to neighboring communities, okay? But I think it can still be improved to, you know, and still not lose any of our control, you know. I mean, you got to have planning, you got to have districts, and, you know, and you have to have zoning because you got to control it. It protects one side of the fence as it does the other side of the fence on those issues. So I'm still open for more discussion on this if somebody can convince me otherwise that, you know, it all boils down to economics on the waiver issue there.
Well, it would appear to me that that is what the waiver application would be for that goes to the city council.
Exactly.
We can recommend for or recommend not. And ultimately, it's the council's action whether or not they do recommend it or not. And I would think that it would behoove them in their district to see if that was a prudent action or not. And I don't know how we could go in and make a set class that would work for every application. I don't see how we can do that.
Well, I offer several suggestions. Some cities, much like we have a drainage fund, you can pay the in lieu of, okay? And that money is spent in that drainage basin on drainage improvements. Some cities allow you to pay an in lieu of building half street improvements. You may pay the per foot, a certain number that's determined. Rather than build them, you can just pay this money, and it may not be as much as building improvement, but it would certainly pay toward the street fund. But it gets to a point where when the city council votes to grant the waiver, I guess they are, I hope they're internally acknowledging that the city will pay for that road. I mean, that's what when they grant the waiver, they're saying, we're okay with this, we'll buy that road later. And the other argument is when you have incremental development and everybody develops a little piece of right-of-way and we grant them waivers and grant them waivers and grant them waivers, and then suddenly that whole area is developed but still being served by a 2-lane road, okay? And you've got tremendous traffic, but yet there's no shoulders. It's just a 2-lane road and ditches on the side. And the public is complaining about it, but we granted waivers to everybody to not have to build their little piece of that road. As I said, I understand what you're saying completely, but I argue that maybe staff should look and see what other communities are doing and come back and say, well, you know, here's some options for you in terms of alleviating the cost that you refer to. It is an expense, but at the same time, I don't see that the city should bear 100% of the expense of someone developing their land, and they get 100% of the profit, and I get the expense of building the road for them in the future. I don't see the balance in that. Okay, that's where I'm trying to get. You're trying to get to equity, and I'm trying to get to equity.
Well, I see the balance. Equity different. I see the balance on the other side of the scale from you, I guess, because
public,
you know,
private,
the public is going to be the ones that's going to use that road a lot more than the landowner, you know, by far over the years. So why shouldn't the public pay for it? You know, now, if the city needs to increase their budget for, you know, roads or street improvements, so be it. And back to your comment on, and clarify this on me, I maybe have been of a misunderstanding, but, you know, we collect in lieu of fees for detention drainage, and in lieu of fees for, what are the other ones?
Parking lot?
Yeah, and it was my understanding that those in lieu of fees go into a general fund and not into a specific account. And then I understood maybe some of them are reimbursed back to the owner if they're not used in a certain, I'm confused on, I've heard all kinds of different arguments about that.
Sort of clear it up.
Please.
The in lieu of fee, there's 7 or 8 basins for the city, drainage basins. And so the money goes into that basin for use inside that basin.
In a separate account?
In a separate account. Each basin has its own account. Now, you can't compare drainage fee in lieu of to, as Mr. Don had said,
yeah, right.
to street in lieu of.
Right.
We talked about this 10, 12 years ago, that if we were to do something like that, that money could only be set aside for that piece of street in front of that piece of property. You can't apply, like the drainage applies everywhere.
Right.
But if we were to collect an in lieu of fee for that piece of property, it could only be used on that piece of property.
That's what
That
I've
street.
understood. Yeah, that's what I've understood.
No, only in front of that piece
I
of property.
understand, but if the whole street was being renovated, you could say, well, that money is being spent in front of your.
Right, yes, correct. And so it doesn't really, the drainage is a big picture and the street would be a little picture.
Yeah, it's a
But
different
as-
scenario. And you,
As Chair,
that's what I understood
Mr.
before,
Clifton
too.
said that the Planning Commission does not issue waivers. City Council issues
Correct.
waivers. So the way we're doing it right now, it's really up for the applicant to make their argument in front of City Council to say why they can't or why they don't want to do that waiver or that part of the street. So all we can do really at the moment is make a recommendation. Do we support it or do you not support it?
Do you know
And
if,
the city engineer is also going to make that argument
right,
too.
right.
Of does he think that needs to be done to create any circulation or traffic issues?
do you know if you or any of your staff members, Tim, know what other communities do in regard to, I think it's boils down to, is it, not as you ask for waivers on it, but is it part of their ordinance for that to be done?
Yeah.
Black or white, either they include it as a part of their ordinance or they don't. Do you know what the consensus is of other communities around?
We could check into it, but I think it's black or white. You either do it or you don't.
Yeah, but I'm saying, do other cities around here that is,
The ones locally all do it the way we're doing it.
okay, that's it, thank you.
And back to that in lieu of fee. We tried doing in lieu of fees 10, 12 years ago. We could only hold the money for 3 years, and most of the time,
Yeah.
the project was 6 years in the future, so we had to give back the money.
Even in a waiver fee or in lieu of fee?
Yeah, so
Okay,
we were
I knew
holding.
that's true on when you put up bonds.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was true on
But
that.
and if Jason I can't remember the explanation of what it was, but
Yeah, I think-
we tried it for a while, and it ended up no one ever used it, and we had to give the money back.
Right, well, I think Mr. Chambers has a good idea of, if you could do a little research and maybe report back to us next week, kind of maybe see what the facts are, and maybe we go from there.
Ms. Belasco?
I just have 2 things to say. From someone who deals with that kind of issue every day, trying to keep money specific to a property is going to create an accounting nightmare that the city is going to pay more for than waiving the street improvements, I promise you. If you put it into a basin, as Sean says, you've got one account. You put it into an escrow or a pending account for a specific property, we could have 100 in a month or 2. And then you've got to hire someone who deals with nothing but those street improvement accounts, because that has to be kept as a separate animal and can't be intermingled, because you'd be in a world of trouble. And the second thing is I got to go vote.
You're excused. Thank you, Ms.
Well,
Belasco.
I just wanted to bring up, have this, start this discussion and dialogue, because, I think we're all on the same page. We want to make the city the best it can be, and, just because we've done things for so many years, you know, let's talk about that. That's all I'm kind of saying. Appreciate your comment.
Mr. Chambers?
Commissioner Foster, I just wanted to direct your attention to a road that actually we all know about and was solved, the problem with it was solved privately. And we required half-street improvements on parts of this road, probably for, Norman, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but probably for 10 years. And that was Counts Massey. And it was, you know, piece here, piece there, piece here, and piece there.
Yes, yes.
And then they created an improvement district and did the whole road and tied everything together and really did a beautiful job. And yes, the problem is that we do not go in and set a center line grade and say, in the future, this road will have the following center line, and when you do your half-street improvement, you will match that. Well, the problem with it is sometimes that center line is 2 feet above the existing road. So matching a future center line doesn't help us out much. But they did, that's a case where private enterprise went in and taxed themselves to do that road. I'm all in favor of that. I just personally don't care to pay for things that a developer should pay for as part of his, if he's gonna make that kind of money on that project, he should kick in something for the public's use of access to it. He builds sewer lines and gives those to the sewer department. He builds water lines, gives them to the water department. Build a road and give it to the city. That just seems equitable to me.
Mr. Spencer and Mr. Tim, will y'all do some research on that, and let's have some discussion on it at our next meeting?
Yeah, multi-state.
Okay, that'll be great. Any other comments? Motion made and seconded, we adjourn. All in favor, aye. Aye. Thank you.